I have to admit, this was one of the more difficult videos I wrestled with doing, because the very concept of it brings out the raw emotion on both sides, and as soon as people get into their emotional brains, you can't speak to them anymore. They stop listening. Now, this video is not going to be one where I say the Second Amendment should be repealed, and it should not going to be one where I say that the Second Amendment is the savior of all things good and right. Because it's a right that kind of, if ever taken out to its full fruition, would argue with itself. And I'm going to try to explain that. What we saw here in Florida was a delineation of three different things that most people don't think about. You can have the right to do something, and you can have the ability to do something, but you might not have the willingness to do something. And that's what we saw with this resource officer, armed, outside, not doing anything. We saw the Broward County Sheriffs pull up. 4 of them, outside, behind their cars, weapons drawn, not doing anything. I don't think anyone out there, even the most vehement pro-Second Amendment person, would argue that you have the right to go purchase a battle tank, or a Patriot missile battalion, or an ICBM and its silo. I mean, technically those are all arms. It does say right to keep and bear arms. But clearly, we already have gun control in this country. It's not the concept of gun control that anyone is arguing about here. It's about the scope of it. No one is saying, not even the most vehement Second Amendment supporter, that there shouldn't be laws and regulations regarding weapons. So it's the concept of it is already here. It already exists. And in fact, there's 2 Supreme Court rulings. U.S. v. Cruikshank. The right to bear arms is not granted by the Constitution, neither is it in any manner dependent upon that instrument for its existence. And I think what they were saying there is that because it reads well-regulated militia necessary for the security of not a free person, but necessary for the security of a free state, meaning that the militia was there to protect the existence of the state. And it does read a well-regulated, see if I can speak English today, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, and then the part everybody likes to quote. And in U.S. Miller 1939, Supreme Court ruled the Second Amendment did not protect weapon types not having a reasonable relationship to the preservation or efficiency of a well-regulated militia. So it's already out there. And then we have the D.C. Heller, and then McDonald, Chicago, Gaetano, Massachusetts. And protection not limited to only those weapons useful in warfare. So point being, when it comes right down to it, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I wouldn't wish that event on anyone. Because I'm sure this guy, 99% of his duties didn't require him gunning anyone down or pulling his weapon and ending a life. I'm not saying the kid doing the shooting didn't deserve it, but I'm saying he probably was the only person involved in this that had any real training killing anyone. I hate to say it, but that's the case. Because that's what it takes. That is absolutely what it takes. You cannot expect to just train at the range, clean your weapon, study up on the different types and which one would be the best suited for you. It's not gonna do anything to contribute to your preparedness for that first time that you have to take a life. It changes you in ways that you stop thinking about the Second Amendment the same way. You know, this is The Blaze. This is Glenn Beck's deal, but not a giant fan of him. I mean, I agree with a lot of what he says, but he gets a little ridiculous sometimes. But this was a really good article. It was really, really good.
Do you remember the first time you spoke to him?
Yeah. We weren't a family that carried guns or...
Every small little detail of that exact moment. I can tell you what the dust felt like, how the air tasted on my breath. Every little detail you know, because that's the first time you've done something so big.
I'll just stop it there. I don't think any one of these guys would look at the Second Amendment as one of those rights that they're sure glad they have after having gone through this experience. Because they would probably just scratch their head at somebody that's never done this and go, why do you think this is such a rallying cry? Because if you're ever at that point, probably the only thing worse than having to end someone's life is having yours ended or someone you love's ended in front of you. That's how bad it is. And it's funny how the guy talks about the smells. You can't describe it with words. Up close and personal, what it's like. And so those of you who want to go and ring the Second Amendment bell and talk about how it's going to protect your freedom and how it's going to preserve liberty and democracy and all this kind of stuff that you see in the movies, I want you to remember this, that if it ever gets to that point, where normal civilians like you and me are forced to pick up and draw down and kill other human beings coming at us, it's already gone. All that democracy, all of that liberty, all of that wonderful thing that we call America, if we're ever forced to do it inside our own borders against our own people, that's already gone. Because then security by the gun is not security. If the only thing keeping you free, if the only thing keeping you able to do the things that you want to do is the threat that you can kill more of them than they can kill of you at any given moment time, that's the life you want. Go right ahead. But it's not something anybody who's ever been through it would ever say is the choice. You have to understand that Second Amendment was adopted in 1791. We won the Revolution in 1776. Ask yourself why it took them 15 years to get that in. 1791 it was adopted. 1789 was the Constitution. Why did it take them 2 years after that? Because I think they eventually realized something. That they weren't going to be a free country. They weren't going to be this bastion of hope for the world if everything was done at the point of a gun. You can't be going out every single day armed to the teeth saying, well, gosh, I can go grocery shopping now because I have a 9mm on my hip and I feel safe because of that 9mm. I feel safe because if there's, believe me, if you're the one guy that has a gun and there's a bunch of people around who want your gun, they'll find a way to get it. You gotta sleep sometime. And in these cases here, they were killing other armed people. So apparently, in the one case, the one guy having a machine gun didn't stop that guy. He had a machine gun and an ammo bearer, and he got knocked off by a sniper. And then the woman saw the machine gun. She got killed. It's never going to be, you're never going to feel safe. When it gets to the point where you have to use that weapon regularly to protect your, what you call your freedom, it ain't going to be like the movie. It's not going to be The Patriot. It isn't going to work that way. Never does, never has. So, I'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.